I used to think growing older meant slowing down. But apparently to my husband Mark it meant stopping altogether. It started one ordinary morning, as I stood in our kitchen whisking pancake batter, humming to the radio. Mark glanced up from his newspaper and chuckled. "You really think you can keep up with all this baking forever? You're not in your 30s anymore, Helen." The word stung more than I let on. I laughed it off, pretending it didn't bother me. But deep down something cracked. I'd spent years supporting his dreams, working late, managing our home, putting my ambitions aside because we needed stability. But now, when I finally wanted to start something of my own, a small online bakery, he called it a midlife crisis. He told me, "You'll embarrass yourself. No one wants cakes from an old lady." That night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the words echoing in my head. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was chasing something foolish. But then I remembered how alive I felt when I baked. The smell of vanilla. The soft rhythm of dough under my hands. It wasn't just baking. It was me reclaiming a part of myself I'd buried to please him. The next morning I opened my laptop and stared at the empty screen. I didn't even know where to start. A website? Social media? It all felt foreign. But I told myself if I can raise a family, I can build a business. I watched tutorials, read blogs, burned a few cakes in the process. My kitchen became my battlefield. Flour on my hair. Notebooks filled with recipes and ideas. Mark would walk in, shake his head and mutter, "You're wasting time, Helen." But something inside me refused to give up. For once, I wasn't baking for approval. I was baking to belong to myself again. I posted a few pictures of my cakes online. Nothing fancy, just honest work from my small kitchen. And then one day I got my first order. A batch of lemon cupcakes for a baby shower. I remember crying as I packed them. Not because of the $30 payment, but because someone believed in me, even if Mark didn't. Orders started trickling in. Then pouring. Suddenly I was baking late into the night, with soft jazz playing and the smell of sugar in the air. My kitchen felt alive again, like it had missed my laughter. Mark grew quieter, then irritated. He complained about the mess, the noise, the constant smell of frosting. But beneath his annoyance I saw something else, envy. One evening he said, "You're getting lucky, Helen. It won't last." But luck had nothing to do with it. I had worked for every single crumb. I started hiring helpers, young women who, like me, had been told they were past their prime. Together we built something real. Within a year, my little bakery had over 50,000 followers online. We couldn't keep up with orders. I opened a small shop downtown, bright, cozy, with the smell of fresh cinnamon rolls greeting every customer who walked in. And for the first time in decades I felt proud, not as Mark's wife but as Helen, the woman who built something from nothing. Then one evening I came home early. Mark was sitting in the dark, staring at his phone. He looked up, eyes red, and said quietly, "They let me go." He'd been fired, the company downsizing after years of poor management. I felt sorry for him, truly. Losing a job can break a person's confidence. I offered comfort, but he pushed me away. "I don't need your pity, Helen. You wouldn't understand." But I did understand. I'd been there. I'd felt worthless once too. Weeks went by and he struggled to find work. His ego couldn't handle that my bakery was thriving while he was unemployed. He started staying out late, coming home with bitterness in his voice and resentment in his eyes. "You think you're better than me now?" he spat one night. I didn't answer. I just looked at him, really looked, and realized something painful. I had outgrown the man who once made me feel small. Months later, we needed extra staff for a new delivery branch. My manager brought me a list of candidates. When I saw his name on it, I froze. Mark. I asked her to call him in for an interview, not out of revenge but curiosity. I wanted to see how fate would handle what he once called a waste of time. He walked in wearing a suit that didn't fit right anymore. His eyes darted around the room. The office walls lined with pictures of cakes, awards, smiling customers. When his gaze landed on me, his jaw tightened. "You," he muttered. I smiled softly. "Me." He sat across from me, fidgeting. "I didn't know it was your company." "Oh," I said. "You thought I was too old to work. Guess time had other plans." Silence filled the room. We both knew how ironic it was. The man who mocked my dreams now needed a job from the woman who never stopped believing. I hired him. Not out of spite, but because I wanted him to see what belief, real belief, looks like. First, he avoided me. He kept his head down, doing deliveries, handling inventory. But slowly he started to see the women he once dismissed. Thriving, laughing, leading. One afternoon, I caught him watching them frost cakes. His expression softer than I'd seen in years. "You did this," he said quietly. "I didn't think you could." I smiled. Neither did I. Until I had to. Over time the tension eased. We weren't the same people anymore. He wasn't my boss or my judge. Just a man learning humility in the place he once belittled. As for me, I had found peace in the most unexpected way. Not by proving him wrong, but by proving myself right. The bakery grew beyond my wildest dreams. We shipped nationwide, hired dozens of employees, and opened workshops to train women starting over. Women who'd been told they were too old, too slow, or too late. Mark eventually left to find work elsewhere. And this time I didn't stop him. We had lived our story, learned our lessons, and closed the chapter with grace. Sometimes I still think about the day he said those words. "You're too old to work." I smile now because those words didn't end me. They rebirthed me. They pushed me to rediscover the woman I had hidden behind apron strings and dinner plates for far too long. And every time I see a customer smile, or read a thank you message from a woman who started her own bakery after watching my story, I whisper to myself, "See, Helen, you were never too old. You were just waiting for your moment." If you've ever been told you're too old, too late, or not enough, let my story be proof that it's never over until you decide it is. Dreams don't have expiration dates. So bake your cake, paint your canvas, start that business, chase that spark. No matter who doubts you. Because sometimes the people who say you can't are just afraid that you will. And when you do, you won't just rise. You'll rise higher than they ever imagined.